So yeah, all started. Oh, started. I should probably say hello. So yeah, so this is the Tuesday Talk. For anyone who happens to be new here, I don't know if anyone is. If anyone is new, you could just sort of say hello. So you just throw any old questions out. I've got plenty to talk about tonight. If nothing else, we can think of some questions here. But no, I didn't kill Mythic Kill Jaden. I will show you something fun though. There's for those who don't know, on Mythic Kill Jaden, there with the reflections, like on Heroic, normally you stack them up and you DPS them down, AoE them down. On LFR, you should probably do that too, but who's going to do that on LFR? But on Mythic, you don't. They'd heal up if you did that. But also, the person who gets the reflection has to be a bit careful, because as soon as their reflection dies, they're going to spawn like spirals of orbs all around them. So, and they have to sort of move out the way of the danger zone as well. And one of our priests last night, good player by the way, but one of our priests, he got a particular mark and he was moving his back and he did that. But the line, he sent the line of orbs straight across where we'd run to the next ad, because he got the first one that we're going to kill. And he wouldn't have that it positioned it wrong, because from his point of view he'd done it right. But we're trying to explain you only have to get it slightly wrong. And it completely kills you. And I had this ready actually. I cut a little video just to sort of demonstrate it. Hold on, where's this best stuff? So let's just try and play this. So this is his. What I did is I cut together his, and then followed by someone who did it like everyone else. Whoa! So it's just gone right across. These orbs have gone right across where we would go to get to the next ad, and it's hit someone behind me, which has then exploded on everyone else. Now this is the way the normal person does it. I need to show him this video actually, just to try and show him the difference. And and it's a subtle difference. I think that it takes some, and I think this is one of the things about Kill Jaden. It takes some practice, and you need everyone to get. Look, see, it's going either side of us, easy as you like, easy to dodge, and still do DPS on the ad, which is sort of what you want there. But and I think that's one of the difficulties of a fight like Kill Jaden. You've got these mechanics that you need to try out. You need to practice them. But they're random on who they're going to hit. So, you could have like a load of pulls. And no one gets... And a particular person doesn't get it for ages. And you think it looks all right, the same sort of people getting it. Then 20 pulls later, someone who hasn't had it ever gets it. And doesn't quite get it right, even though they sort of know the principle of it. And you're back to square one. So you sort of need everyone to get it. It reminds me very much, the first fight I remember being like that was Gorefiend in Black Temple, the original Gorefiend. With getting the mark, especially if you were the first person. If you were the first person to get like the death mark and turn into the ghost, that was the hardest job on that fight. If you got the ghost later on, it wasn't as bad because you had the person who came before you to help you out as well. But the first person who got it had to do it all themselves. And if you never had that experience, I was quite fortunate. I used to get that a few times when we would start to learn it. But then if you had someone get it and they had never got it and they got it later on, and then people would be upset with them for cocking it up because by this time we've done so many pulls on it, we want to kill it now. And what if in the next expansion, legendaries, maybe even tier pieces, weren't items but personal enchantments? My idea for legendaries was to combine them with trinkets. Instead of having separate, because they have the same design philosophy for trinkets and legendaries. Come up with some crazy ass like utility with them. You just have to look at the Pantheon trinkets that are coming in Antorus, sorry. It's like a game of one-upmanship. They come out with the initial load of trinkets for dungeons when an expansion first comes out. And then they have to come up with something like, to outdo those. And then, there's this massive arms race follows throughout the whole expansion. And then you end up with the final tiers with the trinkets coming out, and they're just off the scale in terms of what they do. They're basically they are legendaries. They're like legendaries. And so I don't see why they don't just combine them. Because you've got a hassle with the current legendary system, which is where it blocks off certain piece of gear. Like, you could have a legendary, it's your BIS legendary, you're always going to wear this legendary, and then you get a 955 item for that slot that's got your ideal stats. It's like, well, I can't wear the 955, can I? because, you know, it's got that legendary in that slot. Or mucking about with your tier and stuff like that. I would just switch it to trinkets. Just, you know, legendary trinkets. No normal trinkets. Don't have ordinary trinkets. Just legendary trinkets. Done. Deal with it like that. It means they don't have. They only have to come up with half as many daft ideas as well. In fact, not even that, because there's loads of trinkets, aren't there? That's what I would personally do. How cool would it be if there was a training mode where the guild leader could take players in and pick certain mechanics to practice? Well, I don't know, like, Proving Grounds was supposed to be that, wasn't it? For, like, dungeon type mechanics. I'm not sure there's enough. Like, I imagine something like that could easily be done. Like, the Mage Tower is an example of that, isn't it? But the thing with the raid is sometimes you like coordinate. Sometimes it's personal for you. You deal with it. Sometimes it's not. But the Mage Tower is an example of that. Hi, Richard Pally. You know, and I suppose if Blizzard were interested, they could expand on that. But whether it's worth their development time to do it, I don't know. Legendary system should have worked more like Diablo, so where you just cube it and then pick what you want. Yeah, I never got that. I haven't played Diablo enough to get that. I know about the cube thing. I never used it, like, because literally when I mean, first played Diablo 3, of course, when it first came out. We got it we got it free, didn't we? For getting the annual pass at the end of what was it? Was it Cataclysm or Mop? Cataclysm, wasn't it? The end of Cataclysm, you got the annual pass, and then you got Diablo. So I played Diablo 3. I'd never played Diablo 1 or 2, and I didn't like it much. I played it for an hour and I thought, no, that's not for me. Then later on, when I found out you could play a Templar, I thought, oh, that's a Paladin, basically, isn't it? So I played it again, and I played it all the way through. I thought, it's all right. You know, it's okay. That was when, with Reaper of, what is it? Some Reaper of Souls? Something? Some expansion, anyway. But yeah, so I got to, like finish the story, did a little bit of end, very little, and just got. I preferred to level up more characters than I did to play on the same character. So the cube strips off the legendary effect from the gear, and you could choose separate effects to have on and not to have. Well, oh, I see. Okay. So you. Oh, I get it. So you're stripping off the effects and then combining the ones you want. Is there a balance issue with that, though? I suppose Diablo 3 is a different game because you don't, like, balance isn't as big an issue, I suppose. Pinky, sorry, I have no, if you can ask someone in the chat, I have no tips, I am afraid, for Thete of the Triumvirate because I have not done it myself on Mythic at any level. I don't even know what to do. But, that being said, I know that Wowhead have just brought out a guide a couple of days ago that's supposed to be quite detailed for Mythic Plus. So I would check out Wowhead. I saw them tweet it a couple of days ago. Or was it last night? Can't remember. I've seen them tweet it very recently. You've got a +1. So 11, sorry. Yeah, I don't know. All I've done it was on Heroic, and there you don't have to pay any attention to what the bosses do. It really makes no difference. What they appear to do is die. Which I'm sure is not the case when you're doing it on any decent Mythic Plus. Oh, you get constantly respawning ads, do you? There was something, didn't someone say, I haven't been watching these Mythic Dungeon Invitationals, but I gather that someone, I don't know whether it was a semi-final or something, quite late on, apparently they got Thete of the Triumvirate and they'd never done it. That was weird. A gauntlet's basically when ads keep coming at you until you either reach a particular point or, in this case apparently, kill the things that's summoning them in. So it's like it's like a race against the clock. You can't just clear a bit of trash and have a rest or something like that because more will just keep coming. So it's either you've got to reach a particular point or you've got to kill what's spawning them in. Yeah, the Backstairs of Blackrock Hold. Or, I mean, the first one, which was literally a gauntlet in Shattered Halls in TBC, where you had to reach a particular orc in a room, like a barracks room, before they would stop. AQ40 wasn't a dungeon, but there was indeed a gauntlet type situation in AQ40 as well. That was leading on to that wormy boss. What was it called? The centipede thing. Can't remember its name now. After Battleguard Sartura. Don't know about Sindragosa. Never did that in vanilla. We got up to just about killing Gothic, nothing more. But the AQ40 one was just getting to a particular point, really. Without and not trying to clear. Well, yeah, but I don't remember it in Wrath because everything died in Wrath. Got to level cap, went into Naxxramas, killed everything. That was my recollection of Naxxramas in Wrath. I remember Naxxramas in vanilla far more keenly in Wrath, even though Wrath was more recent, and I did it more often. Because, or did I do it more often? Yeah, I must have done. Because in Wrath, I don't remember anything. I remember going to the instance and then coming out of it when I've killed everything. Oh, ICC was it? I don't remember the names of these frost dragons. Well, I wasn't playing at the time with that, so I've only soloed it, and I wouldn't really know. I know there's a lot of messing about in a room just before it. I don't know whether it's a gauntlet. I'm not sure whether you'd call it a gauntlet though. I don't know how it was supposed to work when you had like a proper raid at the right level. It just seemed to me that loads of stuff come in a circular room, and eventually it just stops coming. I don't know what the trigger is. Nax was hugely disappointed to me. In Wrath, massively disappointed because I thought it was a superb raid in vanilla, and it was absolutely a joke. And it's very difficult to explain why. But it was badly undertuned. Loads of mechanics ripped out of it as well. People wouldn't have put up with some of the mechanics you had to deal with in vanilla, I don't think. Like the way you had to deal with the likes of Lower Theb, you wouldn't put up with that and you couldn't do it, I suppose, as well, because you had a 10 and 25 man version for Wrathnax. You couldn't do Lower Theb like that, so I'm not sure the mechanics would translate very well. But even some of the trash was, it had to be treated with extreme caution in the vanilla version of Nax. Extreme caution. And there was a bit of I suppose you could argue a bit of a gauntlet in the Nax there on the way to Hagen, between Noth and Hagen, because you had that room with all the maggots and stuff, they respawned. So you had to sort of pick your route there quite carefully. I'm wearing Whisper of the Nathrazim at the moment, but that is purely because now my gear is at the point where my tier 19, which I could never get above 905 for any pieces, is too far behind in item level now. So using Whisper of the Nathrazim now sims higher than 2-piece tier 19 and 4-piece tier 20 with the pieces I now have. So I have gone back to the cloak. That being said, you have to be a little bit careful about the sims there, because if it's a heavy movement fight, the cloak is not as good. Just like, you know, if you can't get full use out of Crusade, the belt is not as good. But for now, I am using the cloak. I'm assuming that I will be able to get better use out of the cloak. Yeah, Solo the High Lord is certainly a possibility if you can't get full use out of Crusade. I think on Mythic Kil'jaeden, I might be able to, though. So I'm still sticking with Belt and Cloak on that. But I'm not 100% certain yet. I'm going to wait to see how the rest of the fight pans out. But this, you do have to be... I mean, Blizzard, ironically, were talking a little bit about Sims recently. You know, as they always do. They always sort of pour water on the fire on that one. They would much prefer it if no one simmed anything. Even though, as someone pointed out, many of their most senior developers started out themselves as players of World of Warcraft and theory crafters who did sim things. But they're very, very keen to point out the drawbacks in it. But there are drawbacks in it, and one of them is if the sim that you're using isn't really modelling the fight that you're doing or the way that you're doing it, then the results are going to be a little bit unreliable. DPS middle to bottom. Well, it depends why you think it's middle to bottom. What class are you playing? Shadow Priest. Yeah, they're supposed to be quite good. What I would do is compare your logs on specific fights with those of like higher achieving Shadow Priest and see if there's some difference in either like gear choices or talents. I know you can't just copy someone's talents because they may be using those talents based on the gear they've got and it might not be suitable for you. But think about it anyway, and the way, like, look at the opener in particular. The opener is really easy to be a first port of call. It's always the first thing I look at when someone wants me to look at their logs on like Rep Paladins. Are they getting the opener right? Because you have to be more reactive during the fight, but at the start, you know, you're going to use this. You can use the same sequence of abilities in exactly the same order, because the only difference would be if you use heroism at the start or not. That might affect a few things. You are certainly, I am brother, yes, expected to know what is an upgrade and by how much of an upgrade for mythic raiding, so that you can inform the loot council of what to, you know, how much of a benefit it's going to be for you. And you are obviously going to have to use Sims with that. Yeah. You can't do what Blizzard said, because what Blizzard said in one of those things when they defended the Netherlight Crucible last week, wasn't it? It was like, what was it? Something like, oh, you might look at this, oh, it's got crit on it, I'm a fire mage, therefore I want crit. You can't really say that in a raid. If our fire mage said that, it's got crit on it, so I want it, please. We're just looking at, well, how much of an upgrade is it for you? Don't know, it's got crit though, want it. I'm not sure they'd get it. You got a ring from your weekly chest with an on-use ability. Will that cause conflict with your trinket cooldowns? Yes, it will. You'll have to find out how much, because for some reason it seems to be different. Depends on how long the on-use effect lasts, I think. Because, for example, I mean, there's certain times when it's sensible to use 2 on-use trinkets, for me anyway, which is like Vial of Ceaseless Toxins and Spectre of the Betrayer. If I use Spectre of the Betrayer first, it puts the vial on a 10-second cooldown. Well, that's sort of okay. But sometimes, if you use 2 on-use things, it might put it on the other one on cooldown for like half a minute or something, which might not be any good. But yes, you will have to consider carefully, try it out, see exactly what it does. But it will not let you use 2 on-use things at once. I'm just trying to think which ring you're talking about. What ring is it that has an on-use? 940, yeah, I've got a 940, yes. But the problem with the Spectre of the Betrayer is, although it's not useless if the boss has been moved all over the place, it is a bit of a nuisance. It does like half the damage. So the thumb ring, I don't know. I'm not familiar with this. What's the effect on it? What does it do? Hi, Jack. Yeah, I think it's best for a lot of people if the boss isn't moving around. If the boss wasn't moving around, I would use it. But bosses tend to move around. Goroth, you can sort of get away with it usually, because Goroth's got quite a large hitbox as well and shouldn't move around. But even then, he sometimes does. Nordthumb. I'm familiar with the name, but not the actual ring. I don't know. Oh, increase the magic damage by 5%. All right, okay. Demonic Inquisition, yeah, but the Torment. You know, there'll be times when you're going to use it when Fell Squall's happening, then you get yourself top. Now, if you get so little Torment in the rest of the fight because the rest of your raid behave themselves, you might be able to afford it. But, I don't know. $9.40 socketed Hunger of the Pack and Glaive trinkets. It is unfortunate if after all this time you haven't got Cinders, because that's usually nailed on to be an easy one to get because it drops off the first boss. But then again, you know, my Biss Fire Relic drops off the second boss. And although I have the 930 version, I got that fairly early on, it just doesn't seem to drop. Like there's that time 2 weeks ago when it dropped to 950 when I was on my bloody rogue. That was the first time it had dropped in God knows how long. I don't expect it to drop again. Because even like a base 930 now might be of interest to me if no one else wanted it. Because of course it might roll better traits in the Netherlight Crucible. I didn't kill Avatar on my rogue, no. I was only in on my rogue when there was no one else more sensible. It's not a good idea for me to be on my rogue. Because I don't do very good damage with it. So I was only ever on raids there when we were light on people that night. But we killed it when we actually did have a decent number of people. I may displace someone so that I can get the kill on it at some point. How many rogues? I can't remember. I think 2. I'm pretty sure we had our Feral Druid soaking. So I think 2. Because we have a Feral Druid and a Demon Hunter that can soak them. And the rest has to be done by rogues. Because we don't... Even though we have Death Knight, he doesn't seem to feel up to it. Or fancy soaking them all. So yeah, I think it was 2. One of whom is an alt. One of whom, well, I mean, they all sort of are alts, really. But a better geared one than mine. And better practiced. Just having a look at more of these questions that people are wanting to ask Ian Hazakostas on Thursday. Why does last boss on Mythic difficulty only drop 1 mount and not 2 like in Mop? Did it drop? Oh! Well, that's a silly question. Surely it drops 2 in Mop, because to distinguish between 25 man and 10 man. I think that would be an easy question to answer. I wish people wouldn't ask silly questions to which they know the answer. Just in case they actually ask one, answer one of them. Wasting time. Thinking ahead to the next expansion, are there plans to adhere to or move away from the current legendary system? Are there plans to adhere to or move away from the focus on spec affinity as opposed to class affinity? I can only guess at what he means there, but I'm not sure. 3, are there any plans to make mythic raids X-Realm, a la heroic and normal? Problem is, if they did that, then they lose a load of money in server transfers, don't they? Potentially, anyway, potentially. Nighthole drop 2. No. Nighthole doesn't drop 2. We do that every week. Drops 1. The questions, well, basically, there's on the forums, the official forums. Doesn't drop 2. It drops 1. We do it every week. Drops 1. Oh, there's 2 types of mount, but it doesn't drop 2. What he means is that on Mop, at the end of the dungeon, the boss would drop 2 mounts you would guaranteed get 2. Whereas, but the reason for that in MOP is it didn't actually drop. It dropped 2 on 25 man and it drops 1 on 10 man. The reason for that was so that you don't advantage 10 man guilds, because they could just run 2 10 mans and get 2 mounts, and your 25 man group go just getting 1. And it would take a 25 man guild longer. I mean, it still did take longer because that was 2 drops for 25 man as opposed to 1 drop for 10 man. So it still meant your roster on average took a little bit longer for 25 man to get it. But yeah, so where it is on the official forums, in the general section, on the EU one anyway, live developer Q&A, 5th of October. So there's a post with the link to their Twitch, and then people can post questions there. So they can post questions on either EU or the NA, depending on which area you're for, or you can tweet. Who do you tweet? I suppose you ask your questions on Twitter using the hashtag LegionQA. As a reminder, please keep your questions short, 40 words or less. Oh no, it should be 40 words or fewer. Anyway, so that we can get to as many questions as possible. I still haven't seen a really good question yet. Well, no, well, not a very good one. Any chance of allowing players to sheath their one-handed weapons on their backs instead of their hip? I personally find those weapons way better looking, and blah, blah, blah. Well, I think they'd be told in that case to get a sword that does sheath on your back. Yeah, sorry, they are, yeah. So, that's what I mean. I'm going to have to think of a question that I want to submit. Yeah, we got it on Heroic once, quite early on. We never saw it again. And yes, it is just the same mount, but a different colour. But I do wish people would think before submitting these questions, because some of these, like, you should always put your question to a bit of a check. First of all, will they want to answer it? Because if they don't want to answer it, they won't answer it. Yes, you got it, Winnie. Well done. And then the other thing you should look at with the question is, can they just give an inane answer? If they can give an answer such that it doesn't actually improve your understanding of anything, then why bloody ask it? Judging by legendaries and set bonuses which make different talents and builds viable, there are some changes coming to the talent system in the future. Is it true? I don't know where they're getting that from. Certainly don't ask yes or no questions. Yeah, definitely. To be honest, I don't think they would ever just give a yes or a no in one of these live Q&As. That would be a bit silly. I'm sure they would expand on it. But nonetheless, you're letting them expand on it in the way they would like, aren't you? I'm not sure what they're saying. Judging by legendaries and set bonuses, which make different talents and builds viable, they're supposing that there's a change to the talent system in the future. Why? I think that's just wishful thinking. This first maybe interesting question. Will we see scaling for level 1 to 100 before the end of Legion? I mean, I strongly suspect the answer to that would be no, but, you know, maybe it is coming. Obviously, they wouldn't answer it, though, because if it is coming, they'll want to announce it at BlizzCon. And if it isn't coming, then they won't want to answer it at all. So maybe it's not that great a question, although it is one that would interest me. Some people haven't listened to this 40 words or fewer instruction. They've written like essays. Will we see increases in rewards for the 950 missions? As it stands now, it's not worth to do them. Will we see increases in Veiled Argonite drops? I think, to be fair, you get plenty of Veiled Argonite. I think I don't know. What do people think about Veiled Arcanite? I think, you know, you go out there, you can get enough for another piece quite regularly. Like, you could get another piece each day at least, can't you? Why would they not be happy about the drop rate? It's way better than, you know, think about the number of nether shards you needed. Yeah, I thought that. I thought it's fine. It's quite, you can get them pretty regularly. It's definitely way better than for nether shards. If any huge surprises come out of BlizzCon regarding WoW, what area of gameplay do you think it will affect? I always feel that when they're talking about an expansion for the first time at a convention like BlizzCon, they never give, or they don't seem to give, a lot of gameplay information away. They tend to focus more on the story, sometimes features as well. But mostly they're showing off artwork and the story and things like that. And maybe new items and dungeons and what have you. But expanding scaling, I think, I would not be surprised to hear them talk about scaling being expanded. Whether it will be a full level 1 to 100 scaling, I don't know. Because there are difficulties with that. They have to manage the fact that what do you do with dungeons and raids? Will they scale as well? If they scale, you basically have to account for the fact that some people won't necessarily want that, because that means that they're used to going back and soloing those dungeons and raids now for transmog. You'd sort of almost have to create a soloable version of it as well, wouldn't you? Am I sold on the Kulturas based expansion? I'm not sure it's as such a Kulturas based expansion. I think it will be an Old Gods based expansion. I just think that Kulturas is going to be one of the zones, because they're running out of room to put us. We've basically, they can't really add any more to the main continents as far as I can tell. So the South Seas Islands are the obvious place to go to, and of course we know from the Kulturas models that Kulturas will feature. But I don't think it's actually going to be a Kulturas based expansion. I can imagine, like the last couple of expansions, I can imagine the first part of the expansion being Kulturas themed. But I don't think that'd be the main theme of the expansion. Because think about it this way. So for Legion, the first raid was an Emerald Nightmare. It's not really to do with the Legion, that's Old Gods related, if anything. So that's not directly connected to the Legion. So the first raid there had nothing to do with it. First raid in WoD was High Maul. Again, doesn't have a lot to do with the Iron Horde, if anything. But again, it was themed. It was Draenor themed. And so that's what they went for. So I think the same thing really applies in the next one. It wouldn't surprise me if there was a Kulturas themed first like raid storyline, but that the main theme is Old Gods. The shoulder enchant's not worth it for the Veiled Arcanite. I've noticed I haven't been getting very much, but it's difficult for me to tell because sometimes I don't do a lot and sometimes I do more. So I don't know how effective it actually is, really. But I certainly haven't been getting lots of it. I mean, I would probably agree and go back to the Primal Sargarite shoulder enchant. But for the fact, if I'm honest, I'm not actually using it. Even though you can, there's a vendor where you can get things for it. I could at least just spend it on gems and sell them. Yeah, Emerald Nightmare is Old Gods. The Emerald Nightmare is Old Gods' corruption of the Emerald Dream. So that had nothing to do with Legion, really. That's what I mean. So the first raid of the last two expansions hasn't been directly related to the main threat. And the same may well be true in the next expansion. Thunder Fury Quest Giver. I'm trying to remember. Well, obviously things will have changed now, because what used to happen is the Quest Giver used to be near Mount Hydril at the time when you couldn't get to Mount Hydril. It was like Winter Spring. But you did go to Silithus to get the Thunder Fury because some Wind Lord came in and you had to beat him up, and that was the final step. Obviously, the quest will have changed now, and I don't know what the quest is now. I mean, the first quest obviously is getting the drop, I suppose. So I don't know how they'll have changed it, but yeah, one of the guys, it was an elf, wasn't it? And you found him by going through Winter Spring, close to where Mount Hagel was, in that sort of rocky area, like elite quest area, which not quest area, sorry, elite area, which isn't there anymore. My inflatable Thunder Fury disappeared when I used it on my main character, so I didn't use it on any other characters, and yet it's pointless now because I can't use it, because it's like if I use it, I'll feel like I'll consume it. Will BlizzCon have more information on legacy servers? No, they don't want legacy servers. I used mine once. I used it once and it disappeared. It was on a mythic Archimond kill. I was not happy. When I logged out, it was gone. But I don't like to use anything with charges, because then I sort of feel I'm going to use it up and then be sad. And yet, because I don't use it, I'm not getting the use out of it anyway. It's a terrible dilemma. But no, Blizzard have made it really clear. There was that whole Nostalrius thing. You sort of got the impression that they invited them to Blizzard HQ and stuff like that as a PR exercise. They gave no indication. Everyone kept saying, oh yeah, Blizzard are going to do it now, they're going to do it. And I kept saying, I was upsetting all sorts of people, because I was saying Blizzard have given no intention, no indication at all that they're willing to countenance it. That it was all just really clearly a PR exercise, and that was it. No. What they did is they invited the people from Nostalrius to Blizzard HQ to discuss the possibility. Nothing came of it. And nothing was going to come of it. Ever. But everyone sort of thought because of that, oh, maybe they're taking it seriously. They've seen how much people want it, blah, 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 blah. And even though, I think they probably should do it. I can understand some of the hassles with it. And I don't really buy their objections. Their objections seems to be that they don't want to distract the development team from current content. But you wouldn't put the current development team on it. You'd have your own team do it, because it's got nothing to do with the current game. You'd create and it wouldn't even need to be a large team, would it? There's plenty of people maintain private servers. Well, imagine how easy and how small a team you would need to do it with Blizzard's, having the Blizzard's resources. It's simple. But for whatever reason, they don't want to do it. I don't know how many people play. I suppose possibly the argument could be made that maybe they think that people will initially play it and then get bored of it. I think it's just the hassle, because you've got to think about where you pitch it. Like, especially vanilla changed so much there were so many patches. There were double figures worth of patches. So where do you put it? And private servers, although they usually have a system, they also don't often last as long either, so it's fine for them. But I can see Blizzard having a bit of a hassle. What do? Do they set it, first of all, which patch in terms of abilities do they set it at? Do they just have like Onyxia's Lair first and maybe Molten Core? And then do they bring out the raids every few months like happened in Vanilla? And then what do they do when they brought out the last one? Do they leave it that and then reset the whole thing again? Or do they just leave it? What? So I think, although I think it'd take quite a small team to deal with it, and it wouldn't be the current development team, I don't think it would cost them much. And I think it might be worth it revenue-wise. I think they just worry too much about these headaches in terms of long-term maintenance of it. I don't know, Messer Dave, I don't know where people got this idea about not enough quests. There were some zones I barely touched. And there was hardly any zones that I completed. I don't know where are people getting this idea on seriously. I don't, unless you're talking about literally, unless you're going to tell me that, I know it came out in North America in like October, November 2004, and it came out in Europe March 2005, and I played it in May 2005. So unless you're going to tell me that they brought out double the number of quests in those 6 months, that would be spectacular, because there were, you know, it's not like there were enough quests. There were so many more quests to do. I mean, the zones I really liked that I was sort of doing bits in when I finished leveling, which was Eastern Plaguelands, still Felwood. I still hadn't finished Felwood at the time I dinged. Silithus was when I dinged, obviously really small. I did actually finish the zones, the quest in that, but that's because it was tiny. They hadn't expanded it yet. And where else was I messing about with? Winter Spring. So I was still doing those. When I dinged, I still carried on doing those quests. But I certainly didn't do any grinding of mobs, because all I did was quest. So I don't know. As I say, unless you played it right when it came out in North America, and somehow they doubled the number of quests, because like literally, like loads of things. Yeah, well, Desolus is one zone I didn't do at all while I was leveling. That was too far out the way for me. Do I have the Water Strider mount? Yes, I do. Anyway, yeah. I think it was March. I mean, I can't be certain, because I started playing it in May. But there were loads of them. I mean, I did the odd quest in Stone Talon Mountain simply because there was an elf in Stormwind that sent you over to Thousand Needles to collect some, like, wyvern eggs or something. So I buggered off over there and did a couple of quests on the way. But didn't hang around there any amount of time. I mean, largely there were Hordes areas anyway. But it did take me through Desolus. Is it Desolus? Yes, Desolus. The only quest I did there was the one for Moradin. And that I did. Could you actually do an Elixir at level 58? Well, I think, couldn't you get into Molten Core technically at 52? I don't think anyone took you there, those levels. But you certainly didn't need to be level capped to enter the raids. That was true. I think you only needed to be 52 for Molten Core. I think. But I didn't do them until level cap, so I can't say whether... Because even like Blackrock Depths, if you're a bit of a noob and didn't really know what you're doing in the game, Blackrock Depths, even as a level 60, was not a walk in the park. And that was supposedly, you know... I mean, it was a big dungeon. The first part of it was supposedly for like level 50-ish or something. So I don't know. But I remember first time going into Blackrock Depths, I got our heads kicked in. I'm not sure that at level 60, I don't think I ever did a run that was literally all of it in one go. Usually you picked on bits. I did one, or a couple of times I suppose really, do all of Strathome, both sides in one go. I was a Paladin vanilla as well, yes. Same Paladin, in fact. Yes, part of, yeah, for the Alliance. Apparently the Horde version for the Elixir quest chain was horrendous. The Alliance one was actually alright. It was decent. But Jailbreak was the one where you had to escort him. Escort quests were horrendous. But as I thought, as escort quests go, that one wasn't too bad. Because he occasionally did a little bit running. He didn't walk everywhere. He did do a lot of walking, but by the time you got that far, you'd done so many escort quests where they're just so slow. There's quite a good... I don't know whether anyone ever watches... what's it called now? Bugger. There's something on YouTube that does... I have to find it now. They do various like animated comedy shorts, but I only watch the Warcraft ones. The first few they did were amazing. Like the first probably 15, 20. After that, they've been a bit off the ball, and they hardly ever do any WoW ones. Carbot Gaming, there you go, you know it, Crooked. Yes, that's it. And there's one in particular. Hold on. Let's see, because it's Absolute Carbot. Yeah, it's the Warsong Gulch one. There were like 4, I think, in that series. It's hilarious. I watch those sometimes, and they are absolutely hilarious. But there's one that has escorts. Hold on, can I? Let's try and get it up. Let's see if I can find it easily. I usually make a right arse of finding what I want. Okay, so this is view full playlist. Let's have a look. Let's see if we can work out which one is the escort one. Oh, it's this one. Here we go. No sound? What's going on? Oh my god. Okay, that is sound. Gordon Bennett. But this is exactly what it was like as well. Well, I didn't play on a PvP server, so it wasn't actually as bad. But it was still pretty bad. Let's sort the sound out. I know, sorry. Scroll up a bit. I think I'll just try and drag it down. Okay. It's really finicky. No, you pain in the arse. No, sorry, I won't be able to do anything better with it. It's really finicky putting web pages in this thing. That's most of it. But it was like this as well. You would just go around killing everything. There was an escort quest with Tyrion Fordring that Chromie sent you on as well. To like rescue his son, wasn't there, in Vanilla? That was a ball ache as well. Just run, getting all these mobs. And people would be buggers as well. Even not on a PvP server. People would grief you. They'd pull extra mobs in and stuff like that to try and get you killed. But it's a shame they went off the boil a bit with these. Like, as I say, the first dozen or so were actually really good. And the Warsong Gulch ones, you've got to watch the Warsong Gulch ones. But I would watch the first, like, 12, 15, maybe up to 20 of them. But then the rest of it, I would... There you go. Right. But, yeah, but yeah, it's quite rare that they do a Warcraft related one now. And when they do, they tend to be a bit. You sometimes raise a smile, but no more than that. They're not that good anymore, unfortunately. Hang on, let's delete that. There we go, gone. I was a bit sorry about the sound though, because I didn't think there was going to be any sound at first. The advert didn't appear to have any sound. I thought, there's something wrong with the sound here, and then suddenly bang. It always puts it on full volume for some reason when you put anything in. Who's the tank? I'm not sure I remember that one. Let's have a look. can't copy and paste from comments. But even so, like, you know, I don't understand how they would. I can understand that they would have released it with the intention of bringing more stuff out over the next so often. But to go from people saying there weren't enough quests, which you know, if you were talking about when it was first released in North America, I can't really buy it in Europe because it was 2 months later that I started playing it. I'm not sure in 2 months' time they went from not enough quests to so many quests that I barely scratched the surface. Like, I didn't do Elfland stuff. You know, I did some Dwarfland stuff. I did some human stuff. That was it. There were loads of spread out stuff, but you were supposed to, like, you were supposed to move around, weren't you? I mean, I started off in Elwood Forest. I then moved to bugger, forgot the names of zones now. It's so long since I've done them. Westfall. Then I popped along to Red Ridge, popped into Duskwood, round about that. Went over to something, took me to Wetlands for some reason. Did some stuff in Wetlands, some stuff in South Shore, went across to Kalimdor, as I say, went to get those wyvern eggs. So ended up in Thousand Needles. Came back, did a bit of Stranglethorn Vale, you know, went off to, you know, I just kept cycling around lots of different places, but never really finished a zone. And some zones didn't touch, like, didn't do anything. I can remember the Order of the Zones because it was new, wasn't it? That's why, like, people look at, like, these things through I found me rose-tinted glasses as well. People will look through rose-tinted glasses at, like, their first experience of something and think it was amazing because it was new and you remember it all very fondly. And then the other stuff, you're sort of more blasé, isn't it? So you don't remember. So I can remember things I did in vanilla more keenly than things I've done more recently, like in recent games, because you're just going through the motions in other games. Like in WoD, I'll remember some leveling experience and I'll remember some bits of raids and nothing else. I didn't do anything else, but it was because it was new. And it took you a long time as well. It was not an easy thing. Like, I remember, for example, there was a quest in Duskwood where you had to kill some Worgen, like Shadow Ride. No, what were they called? That wasn't right. They weren't riders. Shadow something. Don't remember. Nightbane, was it? No, that's not. That's a bloody boss. I can't remember the names of the bloody things. But near to the town, there was some Worgen, and some of them patrolled around on their own, and some of them were in groups in, like, little camps. And as a solo paladin, I had to be quite careful because I had to, like, kill so many 9 or something. But I had to pick on the patrolling ones because I knew if I went to the group ones, I would just get killed. But if someone was questing as a group, then you would pick on those ones because that would be a more efficient way of getting the number of kills you needed. Whereas now, you just charge in. If you need to kill a load of a certain mob and you see a big old group of them, you just heave in. Have at them. You think, thanks very much, I can get loads of kills in one go here. But you had to be a bit more circumspect then because it was quite... And you also had to consider, if you were going to kill things slowly, if there was anything else patrolling where you were killing it, so you might actually have to pull it back. I mean, that was something in Dungeons, the idea of pulling mobs back to you instead of fighting them where they were. We don't do... Even in Mythic Plus now, you don't do that, do you? You hardly ever pull mobs back in Mythic Plus, even high keys. You just fight them where they are because you don't have patrolling mobs. You also almost never crowd control any of them, just to pick off 1 or 2 at a time. Yes, if you've got casters, yeah, groups of casters you line of sight pull, yes, to get them, but that's to get them all together to AoE them down. That's not to draw away 1 at a time or something. That is because they will otherwise stand there and cast at you, and you want them in a tight group to mash them. Oh yeah, Gar before raid markers was horrendous. For those who don't know, so Gar, you had your 8 little Gars, your mini Gars, and you needed Warlocks could summon them, so you got as many warlocks as possible to not summon. What am I talking about? Banish. You get as many warlocks as you can to banish them, and then the other ones would need a hunter to misdirect them to a tank, and then you'd kill off the ones that the tanks were tanking first, away from each other, because when you killed one, it blew you away, and then you'd wait for this. And the summons couldn't be banishers couldn't be cancelled either. So you'd stand there, you'd get one element, and the elementals used to run around like idiots as well. So you'd get one, and then you'd say, so-and-so assist me to get your target. Next one, next one. And then you'd be out on the 7th one, and then someone would go, I've lost my target. What? You've done to me. You'd have to start all over again. I wasn't there at the start. Do you mean the early dungeons? Yeah, I wasn't there at Catalan, so I've heard about the difficulty of the dungeons when they first come out, but I didn't experience those ones. But I think, you know, the mop heroics were a direct result of that, because it's almost like they got such a backlash that they didn't dare do it again. So the mop heroics were a joke, weren't they? All the mop heroics was they were just level cap dungeons. There was nothing heroic about them. They're almost unwipeable. I don't really remember a lot about Wrath heroics, actually. I remember the 3 that came later on, because I actually sort of technically came... No, was it? Yeah, the ones that were set round Ice Crown. They were quite good. The 3 that came out around Ice Crown were a bit more challenging, I think, weren't they? I seem to remember, because I came back on a casual basis round about that time. Well, I think the Mythic Plus system is the best system. I think the Mythic Plus system is quite good. You know, the TBC heroics were very, very tough. The problem with the TBC heroics is that they were tough out of all proportion to the rewards from them. So it was worthwhile raiders, like we used to do them as raiders, to help gear up while we were doing Karazhan. But once we had no use for them, for the gear, we didn't do them again. There was no need to do them again. And you could imagine a lot of like people in pugs. I think, you know, I'm not saying pugs were never successful. Some of them were, but most were not. They were just on a hide and nothing. Especially if you tried to do something like Shadow Labs or Shattered Halls, they were particularly brutal. But yeah, I think that was the problem with them, because what you got, if I remember rightly, you could get an epic. You could get epics from the last boss, which were, you know, all right if you hadn't got yourself full raid gear by that time. And then what else? That was it. It was blues, wasn't it? It was okay. It was better blues than from the normal version of the dungeon, but it was still just blue gear. And some of the stuff you got, the problem was as well with the loot table for the epic items off the last boss. It was it would be useful to someone, and then not to the rest of the. It would be only useful to so many classes, which means you'd have to try and get people to go there that weren't going to get anything from it themselves. I'm sure they weren't designed for pugs. No, I'm absolutely certain of that, because the coordination required was quite significant. I mean, some of them weren't too bad. You know, it depended on which ones you did. Like the Shadow Labs and the Shattered Halls just stick out in my mind as being particularly heinous. I suppose in third place, a close third would be the Steam. Was it Steam Vaults? But there were other ones that were okay. I mean, it did depend though. Some of them didn't need that much coordination, but were quite brutal. Like oh god, the Crypts one. How can I Crypts? That was fairly brutal in parts, but I don't think it was that bad. I didn't really do the Zul'Aman and Zul'Gurub 5-mans. Again, I wasn't really playing then. I came back at the end of Kata. Which is a shame, because I quite liked the Zul'Gurub dungeon in vanilla. I was a big fan of that. In fact, when we'd sort of finished with it for gear, I used to arrange on Sundays, like runs, where we'd take some mains and some outs. But I tried to encourage mains to go to get the shoulder enchants. But the way I used to sweeten the deal was all the coins and bijous that would drop, we just used to share them out at the end. And you could sell them for quite a bit. You know, you could do... I seem to remember doing Zul'Gurub of a Sunday afternoon, and you would be able to get coins and bijous that you could sell for 100 gold. Well, 100 gold then was a decent chunk of money of gold for just a couple of hours in Zul'Gurub. Yeah, never saw any mounts drop though when I was there. People went there in hope, never saw it drop. Yeah, I don't have any coins and bijous. I do have a Zandalari honor token though, which you could get with them to break into rep. So I still have one of those. I also still have something you could get from one of the vendors. And of course I've got my trinket from the turning in the heart of a card or something. You won't be able to get exalted anymore with Zandalari, I wouldn't have thought. I don't, unless you get it from doing the dungeon. But certainly the way you used to get rep doesn't exist anymore. So unless they've created some other way of doing it. Oh, if it's in feats of strength, well, I don't know though. I don't really know the difference between feats of strength and legacy. But I think with both of them, they're probably ones that you can't get once that expansion's done with. As I understand it. But I'm not always clear on what is the difference between feat of strength and legacy. I don't really... The only time I usually go into achievements is if I'm like... If I'm trying to recruit someone, one of the first things I'll generally do is get... I'll look at their achievements and look at their raid feats of strength to see what their experience is. Oh, is the Hydraxian rep itself? I know that the Aqual Quintessence is a feat of strength, I think. I think it is anyway. Or Eternal Quintessence as it changed to. But no, I don't know. I mean, you did get, because you got a certain amount of rep from doing their quests. After that, you had to do Molten Core to get the rest of the rep anyway. Yeah, so okay. But yeah, I know for getting the Quintessence, that is now like a feat of strength or legacy, whichever one. See you later. Good luck with your key. Difference. I have no idea between the difference between legacy and feat strength. No clue at all. I haven't spent any time trying to work it out. I have to say. And you know, it may say somewhere. Presumably, when they introduced it, they would have explained somewhere, but I don't know what that is. There seems to also, actually, I remember reading this week, this thing about world quests on Argus and invasions being account-wide seems to have been a bit of a misunderstanding. People took from what they said about that, because I've just seen someone asking it here, that you would get it account-wide. I think people fail to appreciate the achievement you had to get. Like, I assumed you just had to get the achievement on one character. I think they mean you had to get the achievement on each character you wanted before you unlocked it. So in other words, the world quests and invasions are account-wide on all characters that have done the stuff for the invasions and world quests. Which is not account-wide at all to my mind, but there you go. You've got a benediction, it's legacy, but Valinir is feat of strength. Can you still get Valinir? Because benediction you can't get anymore. It won't drop from Major Domo's chest. But can you still get Valinir? I mean, I don't know. So it might be that feats of strength are still possible. Some of them, at least, are still possible to get, and maybe legacy or not. Like, not all of the feats of strength will be possible, because I know, for example, raid achievements go into feats of strength, but of course you can't get a cutting edge or ahead of the curve once that tier is sort of officially considered old content. So maybe it's the case that legacy stuff you cannot possibly get now. Feats of strength, maybe you can, maybe you can't. Depends. So with legendaries, it's obviously, you know, you can still get it. I wonder how many active players would have the Atish legacy. It doesn't really explain what a feat of strength is, though, does it? Because, as I say, if you can get some of them and not others. I'm not sure that that explains that one terribly well. Did all the Legion dungeons to get your artifact skin, but you don't have it on the other 3 weapons. I thought they changed it. It's not retro. I don't know anything about that, I'm afraid. Well, I don't... Even if they had sold their accounts with Atish, they would still be, even if they didn't actually get it themselves. You know, just to wonder if there's any, or how many active accounts there are that actually have that feat of strength, or legacy, I suppose it would be. Feats has no achievement points. Okay. But legacy does. Yeah, Scarab Lords. Scarab Lords would be... Now, I wonder if they'd be more or less common, because you'd have 1 Scarab Lord per realm, whilst you could still get it. Whereas Atish, you could get several on 1 realm, but more than likely you wouldn't get very many on a realm. And some realms would have had none at all. My realm had none at all. Whereas, of course, we did have a Scarab Lord. Let's have a look while we pause there. Some more questions. Are we going to get more alt-related stuff to be decoupled from redoing all the RP through Argus? It was interesting when it was new, not when done the nth time with all the RP talks non-skippable. I think that's a fairly I would just... I mean, I personally think with Legion, I've said this before, they don't need to have any barriers for alts. I don't see why have any. Because even with 1 character, I mostly just play with 1 character, and I have more than enough to do on that one. So I certainly don't see the benefit in and I said this before Legion even came out, before we even knew how much we'd really have to do, that I didn't see the point in having artifact power attached to the weapon. I'd have had it attached to the player, so that then someone who, like a pure DPS player or someone who has to keep up several artifacts, wouldn't be disadvantaged over someone who only has to keep up one. And I think Legion has clearly proven that you don't need to put... In fact, you're actually doing yourself harm by punishing those people, because they're more likely to quit the game if they feel it's too much, which a lot of people do. I mean, one change I would definitely make is to put a stop to that. Maybe that'll be my question. Let's have a look. Let's try and phrase this. So I'm saying Legion has so much to do that making artifact power linked to individual specs rather than just the character makes it too time consuming to maintain all specs. For many players. Any plans to combine all AP earned and have all artifacts on one character at the same level? Let's go with that. How many words is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 13, 14. Probably about 40, just as a quick look. Let's see if that gets answered. Let's go back and look at some more of the other ones. See, this one is no good. Since last September, WoW Legion has been an amazing journey. What can we expect as players for the future? The only answer they could possibly give for that is wait for BlizzCon. Any plans to make first aid relevant in some manner? It's another blast from the past, using first aid in raids and dungeons. I know the terrain in Argus is not, and they put in brackets, yet ready-made for flying. Any chance to see flying possible in 7.3.x? I think the answer to that one will be a quick no. This will never be ready for flying. Professions in general, yeah. I mean, they put a lot of work into professions, didn't they, in Legion? I've been a little disappointed. You can see what they tried to do. You know, they wanted... I mean, their stated aims at the BlizzCon where they were talking about Legion was they wanted to make them so that you could have some people become masters in them. If they wanted to spend the time becoming a professional master, then that's what would happen, and they'd be the people who then could make the best stuff on the server. But that's not the way it's worked out. All they actually did was create this rank. Well, first of all, they made you do a load of quests to get them, which, even though I haven't bothered to do them on most of my characters, they're not actually a lot of work. You just have to do some dungeons. But so there was the quest side of it, but if you went at it, you basically did the quests roundabout, you know, roundabout level cap, you'd done the quest, hadn't you? I know there were probably a couple of quests in like Archway and Court of Stars as well. Then after that, it was just crafting stuff until you got rank 3, wasn't it? Like, I mean, you look at the gems now, the latest stuff. So let's say you've got someone who spends ages on jewel crafting. How are their gems any better than my hunter who I'd spent no time at all on? They're not. So it hasn't even done what they said it was going to do. So only expect we had nice crafting with real professional masters. Burning Crusade. The thing I remember from Burning Crusade was the fact that I was able to craft myself a weapon that I used for raids. So I remember, for example, using the Lionheart Executioner when we were killing Archimond. So the fact that I was actually able to make a weapon that was useful for raids, at least up until I replaced it with Torch of the Damned partway through Black Temple. Oh, for Argus. Well, Argus, the zones, I don't think they could. Like, if someone put a gun to their head and said, you're going to make flying, I don't think they could. I don't think it's possible. I don't think they've even, you know, I don't think they could have made 3 zones and it'd be worth the development time to do it for one patch and even have the possibility of flying. There were times, yes, when you would have to seek out people. Like, in particular, there were the patterns from the Gordok chest, weren't there? From that goblin in Diamol, when you did the Diamol tribute run. I remember getting my Hide of the Wild crafted, and I first of all I noticed it on someone in the auction house. I looked at their, inspected them like you do, and thought, oh, what's that cloak? And I looked it up to see where it dropped and found out it was crafted. Oh. So I gathered up all the materials needed for it. And then I had to find someone who could craft it. And I found someone. And I remember having to go all the way out to them. On they were doing something near what would now be the borderland between wetlands and the Kata zone with the dragons. To get them to craft it with me. I also remember having to wait around for some time to get people to craft the raid enchants if they got them before I did, and I very rarely got them early. The Sulphur and Hammer, yeah, because you needed rep with Thorium Brotherhood for that. Just like you need the Thorium Brotherhood rep to get the plus 22 intellect enchant. And there were other enchants as well that dropped from raids where there might only be a few people on the server that could do them. Well, if you've seen someone who's got a T-shirt there, 866, it certainly sounds like they don't play anymore, but it does sound like they've played in Legion at any rate. Maybe they're just someone who comes back at the start of expansions. Although 866 means they must have stuck around for a bit. At least on a bit of raiding. But yeah, I think that was a combination of the fact that sometimes patterns dropped from what's it called now? The raids, sorry, and you only had so many people raided. And a lot of them were quite rare drops as well. Or some of the things to be crafted needed items from raids, like Onyxia's cloak, or more specifically the core hound bag, or core leather bag, whatever it's called. I don't think we use much of our core leather on that. Whereas nowadays, like I said, I think the professions thing, you know, they wanted to make it more relevant. They had a bit of a stab at it. But I don't think it's worked at all. Like I said, you know, if their stated aim was, you know, we want masters of professions, then they don't exist. Because you can get them so easily. In fact, people who watch my stream on Saturday, so I have my alchemist, for example, who, you know, at the time I had rank 3 on the agility and the strength flask, and I happened to say that I got those really quickly. I only had to craft a few and I got them almost straight away. Whereas I know some people, I remember at the start of Legion, having to craft hundreds of the buggers to get it. Although usually it didn't cost them anything, because usually people would come to them with materials to do their crafting for them, because there were so few alchemists that could even craft it at any rank. And then, you know, so yeah, on Saturday, then someone happened to I was talking about the cauldron, and someone happened to mention that, which was news to me, that it was account bound. So you could actually send it, a non-raiding character. Because I was thinking there's no point in me learning how to do a cauldron because it's not a raiding character. And then someone said, well, you can just send it to your raiding character. So on Saturday, someone directed me to where the pattern was. I got the pattern. And then I did Scenarius. Yes, thank you, Jack. So then I did Scenarius and I had to get the rank 2. But then I made some flasks. So that included the flasks of the other two things, like Stamina and Spirit. And it took me hardly any crafts to get the rank 3s in those. And then for the cauldron, I made some crafts on the cauldron. And it didn't take very many of those to get the rank 3 cauldron either. So my alchemist is awesome. Either that, or they have, without really saying anything, have significantly reduced the number of crafts you need to, on average, get the rank 3. That's all I can think of, because, you know, when I think back to the gnashing of teeth that some people had getting rank 3s at the start of Legion, it was spectacular. Hello, Skip. They said what twice? Did they? I don't listen to what they say about professions. So they've increased. Well, there you go. Then they have increased the prop rate. Well, getting rank 2, you just kill something, don't you? Rank 2s are automatic from killing a particular boss. It's the rank 3s that I think need the procs. Well, you should have paid more attention to these posts then, where they're talking about professions. Whereas I hardly do anything on my profession, so I'm not really interested. Except when suddenly I require, I need to make one. Although at least I have a load of flasks or cauldrons now. I might give it to my rogue when we do the alt runs on into Masagaris. Can't remember how many I made in the end, because I procced quite a few as well. Someone asking here, will there be class changes in the next expansion that focus on class identity and not on spec identity? Well, I don't know what that would do. If they must have a reason for not selling the cauldrons. They obviously feel that there's... I really don't know what the reason is, though. Because you can sell feasts, can't you? So if you can make the lavish Suramar feast, you can sell those. Yeah, I thought you could sell them before as well. So I don't know. I don't, as has been pointed out to me, I've obviously not paid very much attention when they've mentioned anything about professions. So if they've ever said why they're account bound rather than apparently as well, Skit swears blind that they weren't account bound when they first were introduced. So you know, I don't know whether they even mentioned that that was a king, but I don't know what. Presumably, if they actually genuinely weren't account bound when they were first introduced and they changed it a week later or something, then they would have said something. The cauldrons are quite small, yes. You just need a fat bear on top of them, and it's quite tricky. That being said, it's better than some things. I seem to remember it was the feast, wasn't it? It was like the seafood feast in Cataclysm. That there was a particular boss in Dragon Soul. I've forgotten the name of it now. But the one that bounced those orbs at you. And sometimes it would get stuck on the like lobster claw coming out of the bucket on this thing. So we had to be very careful about where we placed our feast. Although I don't think we get problems like that anymore, at least. Oh, here's a good question. I might give this one a thumbs up. Are there any plans to rework PvE and PvP talents of every class which are not or rarely picked? Such as they've just picked a load of druid ones there. Zonos, that's it, yes, that's the one. So that was always a bit of a face palmer when someone would become it's stuck on the lobster. So we used to have to place it very carefully on the back wall, away from where it would naturally be bouncing as well, just to be sure it didn't cock us up. God, someone has written an essay here. They're never going to read all this. What are they adding? It's because they're trying to ask about 20 questions. Oh, they're being called out on Warlocks. In December 2016 Q&A, you acknowledged some issues with the mechanics of Demonology Warlocks, particularly Demonic Empowerment. You said these were issues you wanted to fix prior to 8.0. Do you have an update on this? It's still technically a long way to go before 8.0. Guild housing, yeah. Guild housing would be nice. Player housing would be nice. They seem to have a bit of a thing against it. Well, I think, I don't know. They do seem to be actively making changes to the to Battle.net, as well as introducing this Battle.net app, which looks like it's going to have all the functionality of like Discord. They've obviously decided that what Discord does, it's like, oh, well, we can do that. We'll get everyone using Discord. Which would be a cunning trick as well, because like on Discords, like class Discords, maybe they'll try and get people to set up their class Discords on the Battle.net version, and so that they can sneakily see what people are saying. Because in class Discords, I mean, I can only really speak for the Paladin one, but I imagine they're all the same in this regards. So you've got your general channels, which anyone can sort of join, which will include some Blizzard developers anonymously joining. But then you've got your like hidden areas where only people of a certain rank can join and talk about stuff. Whereas if we did it on, if we went from Discord to a Battle.net based version, then they'd be able to spy on that as well. That would be a sneaky trick. Why can't they just make it so you need to combine different mats from different expansions to craft stuff? I'm not sure. I mean, if they introduce scaling, then because what they do, I'll tell you what they do in Elder Scrolls Online, where the crafting is much more relevant. Because all the zones are scaled as well. Like when you go out gathering there, it's 50-50 whether you find a node that's associated with that zone and the level it's intended for, or you get something that's for your level. So it'd be like the equivalent of going to Westfall and you'd come across a copper or a tin node, but then if you went a bit further down the shore, you might come across some fell slate, say. Something like that. But my issue with it would be that it's, as a gatherer leveling, if you're leveling as a gatherer, especially if you're a newish player, and let's say you're trying to do mining and you're going along, and then you're fighting your way towards a node, and then some bugger comes down in a flying mount, and nicks it, not even aggroing the mobs near it, because there's such... I suppose with scaling that wouldn't be a thing. But they could still fly down and nick it, and you just be going, what the hell? It used to annoy me in earlier versions of expansions when a rogue would sneak in and nick it. I mean, now it's not such a big deal, because when someone takes a node, it's still active for like so many seconds, isn't it? So you can share it, really. But crafting, I think, in general in World of Warcraft, although I like crafting in any MMO, I always do crafting. Some MMOs do it better than others. I would say WoW is sort of, in my experience, like medium. I can think of MMOs that have done it far worse. I can think of some that have done it far better. So, okay, you're talking about actually combining them. It would get people out into the world, so to speak, but would it get them to go out into the world and do anything useful? Like you're just going around gathering stuff in a zone that has nothing else for you. Oh no. I think it's nice if there's actually things to do there. And world quests for me are not like a great system. They're okay, but they're not a great system. Well, you know, Blizzard get increasingly cocky about their ability to spot bots. I just think it'd be a bit fake. Yeah, if it was just that, if you're just going around gathering stuff, because some people do that. Like, for example, I was doing that Argus World Quest. I haven't had it since, I noticed. I'm sure it's popped up since, but I don't get to do them all every day. But there was that Argus World Quest in Makari where you have to spot the demon in that crowd. And it's like, I'm thinking, I'm not even sure there's a method to this, you know. And the last time I did it was on the stream on Saturday. And I was doing it on my rogue, I think. And a demon hunter came along. I thought, oh, fantastic. The demon hunter will spot it. Easy kill. And the demon hunter didn't even seem to realise that they could do this. They just went around them all normally. And eventually we found it, but it was so annoying. I thought, what I need are some elixirs of demon sight, whatever they're called. The ones that you like. So I instantly went off on my monk. There weren't really any on the auction house. And went to Fellwood and farmed some Grom's blood. You know, so there are sometimes times when you want to do that sort of thing. But it doesn't make it interesting. It wasn't interesting to me going around Fellwood, even though that's a zone I used to like. Of course, they've changed it a bit, which I'm not happy about. It hasn't changed as much as some zones. Random notes inside rocks and trees. It's like Ordnance Survey, actually. They do cunning tricks like that. The Ordnance Survey is a company that make maps in the UK. And what they'll do is they'll occasionally put a landmark on that's not correct. Like they'll put a church, but they'll put it on the wrong side of the road. to see if anyone... So if anyone copies their maps, they can take them to court and say, you know, that church is in the wrong place. We put it there deliberately to catch people out copying our maps. Same sort of thing there, I suppose. But I don't know. I don't know how easily they can find bots. Because this is what I used to tell my students as well. When I used to teach them maths, you give them the maths textbook, obviously all the answers at the back. I used to try and tell them two things to get them to stop looking at the answers in the back. One, I'm not interested in the answers, only they're working out. And two, I used to tell them that there's always the odd wrong answer there, just to catch people out. So if you've got the same wrong answer, I know you've just copied from the book. Well, no, people probably don't use maps these days. They use SatNav, even though that's got people into trouble in the past, wasn't it? Google, no, it was Apple, wasn't it? An Apple Maps or something a few years ago that kept directing people to an airport runway. Oh, happy birthday, Manav. I notice you haven't brought us any cake. But when I was young, people used maps. You know, I used to have like a street map book to get to, you know, to find the places I need to actually drive to. There was technically, now I had a program called AutoRoute on a computer, which would do much like Google Maps does now. It would do a route for you and you could print it out. The problem was if you took a wrong turn, then you were a bit stuck. So you still needed your actual street map book to get you there. But this was when SatNav was in very early stages. The first SatNav I ever used wasn't mine, actually. I went on holiday with a friend of mine. So there's a group of us went on holiday. And his dad gave him his old SatNav. He was getting rid of it. And it was terrible. It was absolutely god-awful. And we're driving down this road in rural Wales. And I'm driving, and he's there with the SatNav. And I'm saying to him, there's a roundabout coming up. Which way do we go? And he said, I don't know, it's not telling me. So, okay, so we'll give it a minute. I'm getting close to the roundabout. I said, we're nearly at the roundabout now. Which way? And he says, I don't know, it's not telling me. And we're at the roundabout. I said, we're at the roundabout now. I've got to go somewhere. He says, I don't know. So I just picked an exit. As soon as we left off that exit, the sat-nav went mental. It started saying, you've gone the wrong way. What are you doing? It was like, well, didn't tell us which way to go. So I had to try and work out a way to get back. But yeah, I don't really go in for... My smartphone is really there just to browse. So if I'm honest, it's just to keep a check on my emails while I'm at work during the breaks. So I don't use it on my phone, but I have sat-nav in my car. That's about it. The gnomes stole all the cake. Yes, they would. You're missing the message from the NPC about people seem to cheat the system. Like, it should be fairly obvious if I ban the word gnome that any variant on it should be spotted. But Twitch has obviously not really worked on its stuff yet. I'm sure if I was doing this on YouTube, it would spot it immediately. I mean, YouTube managed to spot everything else. I yet again had my mailbox flagged as being unsuitable for advertisers. It will come back fine again, like it always does. You know, but it's just getting tedious now that I keep having to... go, it is suitable, and then someone checks it, and then they come back going, oh, it's suitable after all. Good news! That's what you get. You get an email going, great news! Your video is suitable for all advertisers. Yes. Thank you very much for like blocking it for the last few days. I'm not sure about the comments. I heard Preach talking about being a comments thing. I'm not at all sure that that's true. Because dodgy comment, anything that YouTube thinks is a dodgy comment goes into, like, there's two little things. One says held for review, and one says likely spam. So I've got these two tabs here, which I hardly ever bother to read, I have to say. I try to read enough. So I don't believe it's comments. Because if it was comments, YouTube would put them in one of those things. Because sometimes they're fine as well. So apologies to anyone who puts a comment on that doesn't appear to come. It's not me manually, by the way, removing them. I haven't manually removed a comment for like a year. Like if I have a look at some held in review now, sometimes it's because people are trying to plug a website. Obviously, that's not going to make it through. Sometimes it's just words. Someone used the word PogChamp here. That's the only slightly dodgy term I can see here, and it's flagged as potentially inappropriate. So I mean, YouTube don't want this any more than, you know, any of us. But I mean, it's not. I mean, it's weird actually, because I don't know what to make of YouTube at the moment. Because on the one hand, it doesn't appear to be doing me any major harm, because although they keep flagging, not all my videos, but they do keep flagging them, but they come back, every single one has come back clean. It's just annoying that they keep flagging them. Like, it doesn't seem to learn that I'm sort of probably okay and gives me the benefit of the doubt. But the other thing is, the actual, because some people have talked about their ad rate has come right down. Mine's gone up. But I'm not getting as many or nearly as many views as I have been getting in the past. So overall, it's not working out as any sort of growth. But it's just really weird. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, obviously I also understand. I mean, this adpocalypse, as it's called, has got nothing to do with, you know, YouTube being put on a firmer financial footing. The other problem is that it also depends. Obviously, you know, they have to run it like a business. But I think, you know, and I don't think they're stupid at Google either. Obviously they're not. But they probably ought to make some allowance for extra bit, like it being a loss leader. I'm not saying it should be allowed to just lose money. But you have this concept of loss leaders in supermarkets where you sell something, you know you're not going to make a profit off it and you're going to make a loss. But the reason you do that is to entice customers in who will buy other stuff and you overall make a profit. It's why, like in this country, I suppose it's the same in other countries as well. You know, the big push at the moment for supermarkets is online shopping. So you order your groceries and then they will deliver them. Well, the actual delivery charge is they charge very little. In fact, you know, my supermarket, because I often get them delivered now, because I started getting my groceries delivered when Legion came out as a way of minimizing the time that I was away from my computer when I had to level up and gear up 2 characters. You know, so I surrounded myself with pot noodles, came home from work, typing, you know, playing the game, and got everything delivered, so I didn't even have to go to the shops. And but yeah, so ever since I've got, so I just pay a flat fee now for my deliveries. It's very cheap as well. They're not making any money off it. They're losing money off that, but they think they're making money overall. Obviously, yeah, at the moment, I would not even think of streaming live on YouTube. I mean, this, apart from anything else, would tell me to not do that. I was very hesitant even before this happened. Because people used to ask me, because there's definite advantages, right? I know, for example, that if I were to stream this on YouTube, I would get more viewers. Because apart from anything else, YouTube subscribers, not all of them, but, you know, all the ones who would get notifications would get a notification that I was streaming. So there's no doubt about that. But because of this ad situation, but it's also not even just that. Like when I'm streaming, for example, I know I mostly don't play music. That's because I have terrible trouble actually keeping the volume of it down for reasons I don't know. I might have to try and fiddle with that. But like if I'm streaming on Twitch, I can have music playing in the background. I can't if I upload it to YouTube. Or at least I can't monetize it if I do that. Yes, yeah, the Prime. I haven't actually sold to anyone with my Prime. It's just going to waste. Well, I mean, the thing is about Twitch and YouTube, which will get bigger at some point, because I think this sort of platform is the future, because it allows people to do their own thing. You haven't got, and you can see who's wanting to fight against it. You know, studios are wanting to fight against it, all the rest of it. At some point, a company's going to come along, and it may not be either Twitch or Google. Someone's going to come along and really run away with it. Because it's one of these things, it's a new technology that is being resisted, but eventually it's got to win. Because the idea of something like this, and this is what YouTube need to wrestle, and I'm sure they are, I'm sure they don't like it, as I say, it's just financial realities. But the issue is that you can do a channel on YouTube, you can vlog about whatever you want, you can do whatever you want, and except you can't now. You can't monetize it if you do, because YouTube. So if I wanted to do a political vlogging series, for example, or channel, there'd be no point now, because you can't possibly monetize it. So the only people who can do that are the ones who started doing it a long time ago and have now got millions of subscribers, and they can afford to lose the ad revenue. I'm sure they don't like it, but they can, because they get revenue from other areas now as well. And they can just accept the ad revenue from, you know, the videos they do that are fine. One thing I don't like about Twitch as a user is it doesn't tell you anything. It's really difficult to get to grips with it. Like, for example, when I got the subscribe button, I had no idea I had a subscribe button. Someone, in fact, Honeypants it was, wasn't it? Just came on one day and subscribed and go, I've just subscribed. It's like, have you? I had no idea. Now, it's not that it suddenly appeared. I had sort of, like, what happened was Twitch basically sent me something saying, oh, do you think you would like a subscriber button? And I went, all right. And I filled in a load of stuff, which was not straightforward, by the way. No, I didn't get a mail from Twitch. Nope. The only message I got from Twitch was do you think you'd want to join our affiliate program? Do you want this thing? To which I said yes. Had to fill it in. It was not an easy process to fill it in either. All the stuff you had to do was not straightforward. But then I just left it. Just left it like that. And then suddenly it appeared. But I don't see it from my point of view. Like, there's nothing here that tells me I've got a subscriber button. You know, the only way I can see subscribers, I can go into the dashboard, but why would you go into the dashboard at a time when there was nothing of interest in there? And I didn't get a mail from Twitch saying, by the way, this is now active. So I was completely clueless. Had no idea at all. Nor did it tell me what I could do. So, for example, when I've got, you can't see my cursor, can you? Hold on, let's grab something. I haven't got anything to grab. Let me get an image. I need a pointer. I need to put a pointer on here. Oh, dear. I had to do this last week, didn't I? Right, I'll go little Ashbringer. So this is my pointer. So this thing here, I got from somewhere, but Twitch didn't give me any advice on how to get that. That wasn't there. If someone like follows or subscribes or something, you get a notification here with the dancing Murloc. Again, you know, Twitch didn't tell me anything about that. I had to find that out myself. So they're not terribly helpful, it has to be said. And it's spectacular just how few useful guides there are on things. It's no wonder people want me to do one, and even though I know nothing, I have said I will do something on how I have set up my streaming. Hopefully this weekend, although I've got to go to work this Saturday, so that's this Saturday's stream knackered. But hopefully I will get time to do that at least, unless something else comes up. Well, that's another thing. I should also, I know there's a black bar. Do you know why there's a black bar? I'll get rid of it for next week. People keep moaning about it. The reason there's a black bar here. Okay, where's my pointer? Where's my bloody Ashbringer? Where? There it is. Right. The reason there's a black bar down here is because this background is a screenshot from in-game. And I play in full screen windowed mode. So I know I have to recruit a tank. I've just found a tank. I also need to recruit a rogue. But you scared the last rogue off. Now, the... yeah, so I play in full screen windowed mode. So when I take a screenshot, it doesn't actually fill up this. So what I need to do... well, all right. After this stream, then I'll deal... Yes, windowed mode, so that I can click on things down the right-hand side. I frequently have to click on things down the right on my menus because, for example, there's Discord. I occasionally have to change channel to either discuss loot or to moan about someone. I have to like occasionally ban people from Twitch, although thankfully that hasn't had to be happen. No one, well, someone did leave, but we've replaced. We just need tanks. Well, yeah, we did have a tank leave. Our DK, who suddenly decided he wanted to go social. Apparently we can never have enough tanks or rogues. I've lost the thread. I'm completely going. Yes, I have. Look, what's wrong with you all? I have to frequently click between different applications. You know, I have to, you know, so, yeah, I need to click between different applications. Sometimes I have to click between different versions of WoW. I've got 2 versions of WoW open at once, and I have to go between characters when, for example, people can't leave my alts alone when they're doing World Quest, so I have to have my Paladin as a Guardian Angel to beat anyone up who looks at them funny. I do need to, yes, I was going back to that, Jack, yes. I do need to put something beneath the stream. Now, I thought there sort of was, but it's not very good. Like, you look at some people's, and it looks amazing. You look at mine and it looks crap. So I do need to do something on that. The links are technically there. They're just bad. So, yeah. But it's one of those jobs. Like every time I get some time, I think, right, I need to do that job now. Like it's going to be one of Summer's jobs. And then loads of other things happened. Or more specifically, loads of other things occurred to me to do. I do, but my stream thing doesn't. It doesn't. You know, you look, honestly, you look at some people's streams, like their page, like their homepage, channel page, whatever it's called. I could make a banner. There's nothing wrong with my banner. I like my banner. The banner's fine. The banner is upstairs. The banner is up. But it's below where I've got links on the YouTube channel, which I can't see at the moment. Hold on. So there's links for the YouTube and Patreon. Not Twitter, actually. There should be a Twitter one somewhere. There isn't. Bugger. Never mind. But yes, it needs to be improved. Yes, panels. I need to make better panels. Oh, you mean there's a place that does those? Okay, well, that would actually be quite useful. I would even be quite happy to pay for such a thing. Which reminds me, I also... need to get back onto the guy who designs my things, like this nice little Ashbringer here and my Mercadin over there. I need to get him to design me some stuff that I am expecting to be revealed at BlizzCon. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and ask if he wouldn't mind doing me some icons related to what I think is going to be in the next expansion. Most of the Ret Paladins turned into rogues, actually. I'm the only one who resisted. And even I somehow ended up on a rogue doing some useful things. Or useless things. Although I never missed a soak. Not that I had very many to do. Instagram, I really don't think what I would do using Instagram for. I don't do makeup tips. And I don't swim. Like, even when I used to be fitter, I never used to swim. I, like, sink. Some people, like, these days you'd probably consider it harsh, but it was not uncommon when I was young. You know the thing you do when you're learning to ride your bike? and then your dad holds onto your back seat when you take your stabilizers off, and your dad holds onto your back seat and holding you steady, so you're pedaling, and you're going, are you holding on? Yeah, I'm holding on. And eventually they just stop, and you cycle off, and you don't realise he stopped holding on. And you look behind, you go, oh, I'm riding myself, and everyone's happy. Obviously, you fall off and rip a pound of flesh off your knees, but, you know, you're still quite happy that you've done that. Well, you also used to do a similar thing with swimming, where if someone wasn't really taking to it, and I did not take to swimming at all, they used to just chuck you in at the deep end. Right, you're going to swim or you're going to drown. Which is it to be? I drowned. So, obviously not permanently. So, yeah, and ever since then, I have a little bit of a psychological block when it comes to water. So, yes. So, for example, if I'm in the shower, which I'll generally have a bath rather than a shower, I can't have water. Well, I can have water on my face, but I sort of, I don't panic as such, but I do stop breathing involuntarily. So yeah, so swimming for me is like, you know, even though I have forced myself to swim at various times, I've not liked it. I mean, I used to do canoeing. I was very keen on canoeing, but again, the capsizing bit of it when you used to practice that was. But yeah, people think it's really terrible these days, but it's quite common when I was young. This was still a thing to be done. You just wouldn't do it these days because it's it's considered a bit extreme. But you would expect it to be a lot tougher back then and put up with these things. Like being placed in mortal danger to learn a skill. Obviously, he weren't in mortal danger. He fished me out. He didn't let me drown. But he was rather hoping I would swim. But that didn't happen. Okay, then. Thank you, Cliffado. Actually, could you send it on Discord? Because... just in case I can't link it from Battle. I should be able to, but just in case. I don't know. Oh, hold on. I've just received something. Oh no, I can get it. Maybe. Okay, right. I'll just put that in favourites. Thank you very much. I shall check that out. Right. Where are we? There we go. Sorry, I've missed some things, haven't I? If that were the case, wouldn't you be able to find rogues for your guild? If what was the case, what have I missed? Well, oh right, with rogues. Well, the problem is that these retribution parties that rolled rogue were all in very good guilds, so we can't get them. That's the problem. Like, good rogues are, even decent rogues are worth their weight in gold, and guilds higher up want multiple of them. So because there are almost no rogues, and guilds would quite like several of them, it makes it extremely difficult to find them. Like, literally, I mean, when I look, and I look every, you know, several times a week, I'm looking through these things on WoW Progress. And what's on offer is, first of all, there's not very many. And what is on offer is like, no good. They can't do anything. Lately, there's a lot of off-topic chat in the Rep PvE. I'm not responsible for that. Not a moderator. Let's have a look. Why? What are they talking about now? Well, they seem to be talking about related stuff at the moment, but I don't know. Maybe there's certain times of day when it's not good. But you know how the internet is. Sometimes someone will say something and everyone else can't resist biting. I think I used to be like that at one time. But anyway, I'll give out the 5-minute call here if anyone else has got anything they want to sort of bring up, because we're at sort of 9 o'clock, which is generally the time I at least try and wind down. And then apparently I'm going to go and redesign this background image here. so that there isn't a black. Because I do occasionally have it. I'm trying to get rid of them as well. On videos, sometimes they sneak into videos. Although if it's a video of some gameplay, I can't really help it, because that is the size it is. Because I play Windows mode. But I can at least deal with this. I would be able to get a different image. I just need to work out what resolution it is, actually. Well, it can be gone. As soon as we finish the stream, I can get rid of it. I just need to know what... I suppose if I work out what resolution this is, what is it? I don't know. 1920 by 1080, does that sound right? That doesn't sound right, does it? It's something else. I'll try and work out what size it's supposed to be, and then create a custom image that size and fill it up with probably the same image and just stretch it out or something. And then it can be gone. But it's, yeah, it's just purely because these images I use tend to be ones I've taken myself from in-game. 1920, it is 920 by 1080, is it? Okay. Well, that should be straightforward. No. I don't think there's any need for 4K. That's going a bit mad for a background. And besides, what I mean is I actually need the dimensions. Because if I go to Photoshop, I need to actually create something with those dimensions. Because I could still use this image and just stretch it out to fit. You know, obviously you'd lose a little bit at the top and the bottom. That doesn't matter, does it? Nothing on it. Or I might as well just change it for a different image. Just freshen it up a little bit as well. What image should I pick now? I'll have to have a think about that. But anyway, okay, I shall call it for a day there. If you make your background high res, it can, yes. I don't think I'd ever want to make it larger. Oh, that one, yeah. Yeah, I've never seen that NPC. Maybe I'll go wandering for them and put something like that in. But I think for now, yeah, I'll just go have a wander around and see which scenery I would quite like to do it on. Maybe not even Legion-based scenery, maybe something else. But I'll call it a day there. So thanks for coming on. I will go and sort that out now while I still remember. And then probably go and do, yes, just the message. And then go and do some world quests, I guess. See you later. I'll be on tomorrow for a bit of raiding as well. Bye-bye.